My name is Evan Brooks, and I've always been good at fixing broken things. 20 years as a paramedic taught me to stay calm under pressure, and now running my home renovation business, I fix houses that other people have given up on. But there's one thing I never thought I'd have to repair: my marriage. The pregnancy test sat in our bathroom trash like a loaded weapon, pink plus sign clear as day. Problem was, I'd had a vasectomy 3 years ago. "You're home late again," I said, when Jenna slipped through the front door at 2 a.m, her heels clicking against our hardwood floors. "Client meeting ran over," she replied, not meeting my eyes. Her marketing job at Preston and Associates had been demanding lately, or so she claimed. You know how these corporate types are. I watched her from the kitchen doorway, noting the way she avoided my gaze, how her lipstick was completely gone, how her hair looked like she'd run her fingers through it. 22 years of marriage, and I could read her tells like a road map. "Did you close the deal?" I asked, my voice steady. "Still working on it." She kicked off her heels and headed toward the stairs. "I'm exhausted, Evan. Can we talk tomorrow?" Tomorrow. Always tomorrow with Jenna these days. I waited until I heard our bedroom door close before I retrieved the pregnancy test from the trash. The plastic felt cold in my hands, but not as cold as the realization washing over me. My wife was pregnant with another man's child. The next morning, I made coffee and scrambled eggs like nothing had changed. Jenna came downstairs in her power suit, navy blue, perfectly pressed, the armor she wore to conquer her professional world. "Morning, honey," she said, grabbing her travel mug. "I might be late again tonight. Big presentation." "Another one?" I buttered my toast slowly, deliberately. "You've been putting in a lot of overtime lately." Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. She paused at the kitchen island, and for a moment I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Fear? Then it was gone, replaced by that bright, practiced smile she'd perfected over the years. You know how it is in marketing. Strike while the iron's hot. After she left, I went to work on our guest bedroom renovation, but my mind wasn't on crown molding and paint samples. I kept thinking about that pregnancy test, about the way she'd been acting these past few months. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the sudden interest in new clothes and expensive perfume. Around noon, my best friend Tom called. He owned The Anchor, the local bar where half of Ashwood conducted their unofficial business. "Hey, you want to grab lunch?" he asked. "Got some interesting gossip about your wife's new job." "What kind of gossip?" "The kind better discussed over beer." An hour later, I sat across from Tom in a corner booth at The Anchor. The lunch crowd was thin, a few construction workers, some retirees playing cards, the usual suspects. "So," Tom said, sliding a beer across the table, "you know Chris Langley's been hanging around Preston and Associates a lot lately." Chris Langley, Jenna's old high school friend, now the owner of 3 car dealerships in the county. Married to Lucy, father of 2, pillar of the community. Also, apparently, a regular visitor to my wife's workplace. "Business or pleasure?" I asked. "That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?" Tom leaned back in his chair. Monica Reeves mentioned seeing them at lunch together, multiple times, said they looked pretty cozy. Monica was Jenna's best friend and co-worker. If she was talking, things were worse than I thought. "How cozy?" Hand-holding, whispering, the works. Tom studied my face. "You okay, man? You look like someone just told you Santa Claus was fake." I took a long pull of my beer. "Remember that old phone Jenna used to have? The iPhone with the cracked screen?" "Yeah, she got a new one a couple months ago. She left the old one in our junk drawer. Thought it was broken, but I fixed it yesterday. Amazing what you can find in old text messages." Tom's expression darkened. "How bad?" "Bad enough that I'm sitting here instead of confronting her at work." I pulled out my own phone and showed him a screenshot I'd taken. This is from 6 weeks ago. Tom read the message, his eyebrows rising. Well, that's pretty explicit, and that's definitely not about car sales. There are dozens more, plans to meet, complaints about their spouses, talk about the future. I put the phone away, and references to a baby. Jesus, Evan, what are you going to do? I'm going to fix this situation the same way I fix everything else. Methodically, completely, and permanently. The community center buzzed with the usual pre-event energy. Ashwood's annual charity auction brought out everyone who mattered in town, and I'd volunteered to handle the audio-visual setup. Amazing how invisible the tech guy becomes when people are focused on bidding wars and social climbing. I'd spent the week preparing my presentation, not the usual slideshow of donated items and local businesses, but something far more educational. A lesson in trust, betrayal, and consequences. Jenna arrived fashionably late, wearing a red dress I'd never seen before. Expensive, by the look of it. She air-kissed her way through the crowd, playing the part of the successful marketing executive. Monica flanked her like a loyal bodyguard, whispering updates about who was bidding on what. Chris Langley held court near the silent auction tables, his wife Lucy at his side. Perfect family man, generous community supporter, successful businessman. His smile was wide and confident, the expression of a man who believed he was untouchable. "Evening, Evan," he said when he spotted me adjusting the projector. "Thanks for handling the tech stuff. We really appreciate volunteers like you." Volunteers like me. Code for people who do the grunt work, while important people like Chris enjoy the spotlight. "My pleasure," I replied. "I've put together a really special presentation tonight, something everyone will remember." At 8 o'clock, I dimmed the lights and started the show. The first few slides were standard fare, photos of past charity events, grateful recipients, community leaders. The crowd settled into polite attention, wine glasses in hand, expecting the usual feel-good montage. Then slide 15 appeared on the screen. It was a screenshot of a text conversation between Jenna and Chris, blown up large enough for everyone in the room to read clearly. The message was from Jenna. "Can't wait to feel you inside me again. My husband's working late." The room went silent. Someone dropped a wine glass. I advanced to the next slide. Another text, this one from Chris. "Tell him you're working on the Henderson account. I've got the hotel room reserved." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Jenna stood frozen near the auction tables, her face pale in the projector's glow. Monica grabbed her arm, whispering urgently. Slide 17. "I think I'm pregnant. What are we going to do?" Lucy Langley's sharp intake of breath cut through the growing noise. She turned to stare at her husband, who looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. "Technical difficulties?" Jenna called out, her voice shaking. "Evan, turn that off!" But I was just getting started. Slide 18 showed Chris's response. "Don't worry, baby. We'll figure it out together. Maybe it's time to leave our spouses anyway." The crowd erupted. Conversations exploded across the room as people processed what they were seeing. Mrs. Dorsey, our elderly neighbor and the town's unofficial information network, pulled out her phone and started taking pictures of the screen. "Evan!" Jenna pushed through the crowd toward the projector table. "Stop this right now!" I looked at her calmly, my finger hovering over the advance button. "Sorry, honey. Seems like the presentation's stuck on these slides. Technology can be so unreliable." Chris tried to reach the projector from the other side, but Tom appeared out of nowhere to block his path. "Whoa there, Chris. Let the man finish his presentation." Lucy Langley walked out, her heels clicking like gunshots against the community center's tile floor. Half the crowd followed her, buzzing with excitement. The other half stayed, mesmerized by the unfolding drama. I let the final slide linger on screen for a full minute. It was the most recent message in the chain, sent just 3 days ago. "Evan's getting suspicious. We need to be more careful. Can't wait until this is all over and we can be together. Then I shut off the projector and began packing up my equipment. Show's over, folks, I announced. Thanks for coming out to support our local charities. The anchor was packed by 10 o'clock. Word traveled fast in a town like Ashwood, and everyone wanted to be part of the conversation. I sat at the bar, nursing a whiskey, watching the crowd dissect the evening's entertainment. Jenna found me there an hour later. She'd changed out of the red dress into jeans and a sweater, her makeup smeared from crying. "We need to talk," she said, sliding onto the stool beside me. "I think we said everything that needed saying tonight," I replied, without looking at her. "Though technically you and Chris did most of the talking, via text message, to the entire town. You humiliated me in front of everyone we know." "No, Jenna. You humiliated yourself. I just provided the visual aids." She ordered a wine, her hands shaking slightly. "This isn't like you, Evan. You're not vindictive. You're right. The old me would have confronted you privately, suggested counseling, tried to work things out." I finally turned to face her. But the old me didn't know about the baby, or the hotel rooms, or the plans to leave me. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're pregnant with Chris Langley's child, you've been planning to divorce me, and you thought you could string me along until you had everything arranged." I finished my whiskey. "The only thing I got wrong was the timeline. I thought I had more time before you pulled the trigger." Monica appeared at Jenna's shoulder, looking uncomfortable. "Maybe we should go," she suggested. "People are staring." "Let them stare," I said. "They're going to be talking about this for months anyway. Might as well give them a good show." Chris Langley pushed through the crowd, his face flushed with anger. "Brooks, what the hell do you think you're doing?" I stood up slowly, noting how the conversations around us quieted. "I'm having a drink in my friend's bar, Chris. Same as you, I imagine. You destroyed my marriage tonight." "No, you destroyed your marriage. I just documented it." I stepped closer, close enough that only he could hear my next words. "And if you think tonight was embarrassing, wait until Lucy's divorce attorney gets copies of all your text messages. The explicit ones I didn't show." His face went white. "You wouldn't. Try me." Tom moved behind the bar, positioning himself within reach. Other patrons had stopped pretending they weren't listening. The entire bar waited to see what would happen next. Chris looked around the room, seeing the faces staring back at him. His reputation, carefully built over decades, had crumbled in the space of an hour. His wife had left him, his business relationships would suffer, and his standing in the community was finished. "This isn't over," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Yes, it is." I sat back down and signaled Tom for another whiskey. "Your affair is public knowledge. Your wife has evidence for her divorce, and everyone in town knows exactly who you are now. There's nothing left to fight about." Jenna grabbed my arm. "Evan, please, we can fix this." I looked down at her hand on my sleeve, then back at her face. "There's nothing to fix, Jenna. You made your choice months ago. Tonight, I just made sure everyone else knew about it." She started crying then, real tears this time. But I felt nothing watching her break down. The woman I'd loved for 22 years had died the moment she decided to betray our marriage. This crying stranger was just someone who happened to look like her. "Come on," Monica said, pulling Jenna toward the door. "Let's get you home." But there was no home waiting for her. I'd changed the locks that afternoon. The bar emptied gradually as the night wore on, leaving just Tom, myself, and a few regulars who'd seen enough small-town drama to know when to stay quiet. I'd switched from whiskey to coffee, wanting to stay sharp for whatever came next. "So what's the plan now?" Tom asked, wiping down glasses behind the bar. "No plan. It's over." "You sure about that?" Chris looked pretty angry when he left, and Jenna's not going to just disappear. I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. Lucy Langley's attorney already contacted me. Wants copies of all the messages for her divorce proceedings. Apparently, Chris has been hiding assets, and she's going after everything. And Jenna? Filed for divorce this morning, before the charity auction. I put the phone away. Amazing how much you can accomplish when you're not wasting time on false hope. Tom nodded approvingly. Cold, but smart. What about the house? Refinanced it last week. Bought out her half with equity from the business. She'll get her share of our other assets, but the house stays with me. The business? Sole proprietorship as of Monday. Turns out all those late nights she was spending with Chris gave me plenty of time to reorganize my finances. The door chimed, and Mrs. Dorsey shuffled in, her eyes bright with curiosity. At 78, she was Ashwood's unofficial news network, and tonight had been Christmas morning for her. Evening, boys, she said, settling onto a bar stool with surprising agility. Quite a show tonight, Evan. Just sharing some family photos, Mrs. Dorsey. Oh, I shared them too. Posted the pictures I took right to Facebook. Got over 200 likes already. She cackled with delight. Lucy Langley called to thank me. Said she'd been suspicious for months, but couldn't prove anything. Tom poured her usual, diet cola with a splash of grenadine. What's the word on the street? Chris went home to find his bags packed on the front porch. Lucy changed the locks and hired a security company. Mrs. Dorsey sipped her drink. He's staying at the Comfort Inn out by the highway. And Jenna? Tried to get into your house around midnight. When the key didn't work, she sat in her car crying for an hour. Finally drove to Monica's place. I felt a brief flicker of something that might have been sympathy, but it passed quickly. Jenna had made her choices with full knowledge of the consequences. The tears were real, but they were also too late. You did the right thing, Mrs. Dorsey said, patting my hand. A man's got to stand up for himself. Can't let people walk all over you and expect no consequences. At 2 a.m, Tom locked up the bar and walked me to my truck. The streets of Ashwood were quiet, most of the town asleep and dreaming about the gossip they'd share tomorrow. You okay? He asked. Really okay? I considered the question seriously. My marriage was over, my wife was pregnant with another man's child, and I'd just destroyed 2 families in front of the entire community. By any reasonable measure, this should have been the worst night of my life. Instead, I felt lighter than I had in months. I'm good, I said, and meant it. For the first time in a long time, I'm exactly where I need to be. I drove home through empty streets, past houses where people slept peacefully in their beds, unaware that their neighbors' lives had just imploded. My house sat dark and quiet, waiting for me, truly mine now, free of lies and betrayal. Inside, I poured myself one last drink and sat in my living room, looking at the family photos Jenna had arranged so carefully on the mantelpiece. Tomorrow, I'd take them down and pack them away. Tonight, they served as a reminder of what I'd lost and what I'd gained. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. You destroyed everything. I hope you're satisfied. I deleted it without responding. There was nothing left to say. The old Evan Brooks would have spent the night wondering if he'd done the right thing, questioning his choices, maybe even considering forgiveness. But that man was gone, replaced by someone harder and more practical. Someone who understood that some betrayals couldn't be forgiven, only answered. I finished my drink and headed upstairs to bed, leaving the lights off. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and paperwork, gossip and consequences. Tonight, for the first time in months, I'd sleep peacefully in my own house, with no lies between me and rest. The last trick was complete. The underdog had his reckoning.